Solving your managerial challenges by using the lab profile. Are you tired of dealing with low productivity, disengaged employees and suppliers, poor work quality, lack of teamwork, and resistance to feedback? The lab profile is a management approach which helps managers address these challenges. The lab profile helps you attract, identify, hire, and motivate people with traits similar to your existing top performing long-term employees. And managers can use the interview to make sure applicants have those needed traits. The lab profile gives you improved productivity and efficiency, increased employee engagement and motivation, enhanced quality of work and production. It helps you overcome resistance to feedback and employee development. And the lab profile fosters teamwork and collaboration. The lab profile is the language and behavior profile. It is a linguistic interview which identifies what a person naturally can do and cannot do, and how to influence and motivate that person. The lab profile is an interview which can be used in many contexts. The results the interviewer identifies is how the person being interviewed operates in the context used for the interview. For purposes of hiring or managing employees, the context is work. When someone uses the lab profile to interview a person, the responses are like a performance spec sheet, which details how this person's brain operates in that context. When a manager profiles the top performing employees at a specific task, the common patterns of their responses are the thinking and behavior patterns which are necessary for top performance of that task in that organization. Imagine how successful managers would be in hiring new employees if they always hired people who perform like their existing top performers. And imagine how they could motivate and influence their team when that spec sheet also identifies detailed information about how to motivate and influence each employee and each new hire. Imagine how managers would improve their results in working with their suppliers, other managers, their bosses, and even their customers if they had one of these spec sheets on each of those people. How would your results be if you knew what each person can do and cannot do and how to motivate and influence them? In 1980, a regional airline based in Texas wanted to improve customer satisfaction, so they asked me to profile existing flight attendants to see which patterns were common among flight attendants with no complaints, and which other patterns were common among flight attendants with many complaints. There was one lab profile category which was associated with that complaints versus non-complaint situation, and the complaint pattern often causes the person to be a complaint generator. So the airline installed an activity in their recruitment process which highlighted this set of patterns, and those who were complaint generators were not invited back to the second interview. This airline was in a dramatic growth period with hundreds of new airplanes as well as new pilots and of course flight attendants to be hired and trained. And because they were now using their new screening process for those who had the most contact with customers, they quickly became the lowest complaint ratio airline in the United States and maintained that status for decades. The gold and diamond jewelry manufacturer wanted to grow his business from $2 million to $5 million annually. He was selling his jewelry and window dressings to mom and pop jewelry stores in the USA's Midwest. Each year he would bring in his salespeople to his office and train them in his jewelry and window dressing products and in the sales technique they needed to use with their clients in their territory. But he was never able to boost their annual sales results to his $5 million goal. After he took a public lab profile training program with me in Dallas in 1982, he realized that one of the questions I taught in my course is one his sales staff should have been using with their mom and pop jewelry store owners. He immediately started calling his client store owners, and over the next few weeks he collected the data this question elicited for a represented cross-section of those store owners. He discovered that a vital piece of the sales motivation process for these owners were not being addressed by his sales pitch. So he called each of his sales staff and taught them the change to his sales pitch. Over the next month, all of his sales staff improved their sales results between 50 and 125%. And of course, his overall annual sales volume improved dramatically. he received a call from his closest competitor in that Midwest market. This man told him he was retiring and closing his business and asked if he would like to hire any of his sales staff before he shut down and let them all go. My client was able to use the lab profile by phone to select many of those available salespeople whose profiles matched his own well-performing salespeople. This additional bump in his business started happening in '87 during an economic downturn in the USA's economy. Within a couple of years, he was closing in on $10 million annually, which was double his initial business goal. The way the lab profile gets successfully integrated into an organization is for the manager to take the lab profile online course. It teaches the complete lab profile interview and how to recognize the lab patterns of the person being interviewed and how to use this knowledge to improve their results. Upon completion of the training, this manager can interview the top performers in a department, and the patterns common among those top performers becomes the needed set of patterns for top performance in that department. And the lab profile training teaches how to motivate even the employees who are not top performers. When you want to know more about the lab profile, you can find a link in the description of this video.